We are joined now by Congressman Pfluger. And let me paint the picture. Let's pretend, put this in your mind, you're at a baseball game. First inning. The opposition has the bases loaded. A line drive gets hit to the third baseman. Getting tense, isn't it? Would you agree?
Very tense.
It's tense. The third baseman jumps up and catches that baseball to end the threat of the opposition. Later he comes in to pitch in relief and is named the most valuable player of the baseball game. He joins us now on KWEL, Congressman August Pfluger. I didn't realize, Congressman, you were so good at baseball.
Well, I knew we would be talking about a lot of topics this morning. I didn't realize you would start with that one. Thank you for that. We do take the baseball game very seriously. We're on a 5-game winning streak, and that was a 1 in a million play. I think I received more feedback on that than any legislative item yet. But it sure was good to beat the Democrats. Thank you for starting with that.
13-2, it was a rout, and way to go. We never want these Democrats to win. On the serious side, the Mideast, of course, is what it is right now. And there's all kinds of intelligence that I wouldn't claim to know about and all of that. But my point is I do trust Donald Trump and the intelligence coming in. But what are your thoughts?
It's a situation that is not unpredictable. You and I on this show have talked about it for 5 years. And it started with the weakness that we saw from Joe Biden. And the approach from the Democrats is just different. They think in a lens of appeasement. No, we don't want war. Nobody wants war. In fact, Donald Trump probably wants war less than Biden or Obama. But the difference now is that instead of appeasing, instead of coddling, instead of talks and just all these different things that we went through for the last 4 years, Donald Trump came in immediately with strength. And the other difference is that the Israelis under Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, are politically divided on a lot of matters, but what they're not divided on is the approach towards Iran. They had 60 days to come to the table and do a deal, and they failed to do that. And when they failed to do that, the Israelis decided on their own that they would go and take out their nuclear capability, that they were not going to be able to enrich uranium for the purposes of weaponry, for nuclear weapons. And I fully support their ability to do that. We obviously don't want a larger regional conflict, but I've talked to the White House and have given them my conservative support, and that conservatism says that you have to have deterrence, that you have to have strength, and that all the options must be on the table. I know these F-22 pilots who have deployed to the Middle East just in the last couple of days, the B-2 pilots who have are standing ready to take action. I hope it doesn't come to that, but what we know is going to happen is that there will be a denuclearized Iran. They can do it the hard way or they can do it the easy way. The hard way says that they don't come to the table and they don't hand it over. And I do think that regime change probably is the best option available, that the liberation of the Iranian people is important. So the easy way is that they come to the table and they hand over their nuclear weapons, that they say to the world, we have lied, we have sowed chaos, we have sown terrorism. Now, that's going to be hard for us to believe, so the conditions have to be very, very strict if you don't go that further step in places like the nuclear plant in Fordow and others, Esfahan. So I'm sorry for the long answer. It's very important that we get this right, and I'll tell you who's watching. China is watching. Other countries are watching. They want to see whether or not America has the backbone, the strength, and the deterrent capability. And the answer to that is yes, and Donald Trump has done the right thing.
All right. Congressman August Pfluger on KWEL AM 1070 and FM 107.1. And you can make the argument, of course, though, that regime change can lead to all kinds of chaos with all kinds of people coming into the country and trying to take over, and that can be a problem, too.
Well, it sure could, but I think what we know about the Iranian people, and I've talked to many Iranians who fled in the late 70s when the Shah was deposed. They live in Washington, D.C., and have had many, many conversations with these people. What we know right now about the Iranian people is that they are oppressed by a very autocratic dictatorship inside Iran. And so in order to liberate them, truly liberate them, you would have to have regime change, because this regime sows terrorism all throughout the world. They want to destroy Israel. They want to destroy America. And I don't think it can get any worse. Of course, it would have to go through changes, which is always a tough scenario to go through. But I do think that that's going to be the best option. How we get there, I mean, I don't know. I don't have all those answers, but I do think that what they've gone through the last 30 to 40 years has been really horrible for the world.
Bottom line, we cannot have the Iranians have that nuclear capability. I think anybody could agree with that. How do we get to that end? That could be a problem. I saw, too, somebody in the news speculating, and I don't like some of these news people, but they were speculating now the bunker buster is not big enough to get inside that mountain and do the job, so now Trump is considering nuclear. I find that hard to believe, but that comes from some of these news sources.
Well, I would find that hard to believe as well, and I think Donald Trump, of all the presidents that we've had, would be the most resistant to ever use a nuclear weapon, and that's why he talks tough. He is tough. He shows a tough hand every time he negotiates around the world, because he doesn't ever want to get to that point. He doesn't want to get to the point of having to use troops and weapons and those kinds of things. And let me just say, in my role as chairman of the Republican Study Committee, about a month ago, Craig, I sent a letter to the president. I had 177 co-signers in the House, and I had 52 of the 53 Republican senators. 52 of the 53 Republican senators who signed my letter to the president, and we put down a red line and we said there is no scenario where Iran can remain a nuclear power. There is no scenario where they can attain a nuclear weapon, where they can continue to enrich uranium. Normally, you don't send your own president in the same party a letter, but we felt so strongly about it. And from my experience in the Middle East, my experience flying combat in the Middle East, my experience with Iran, I knew that this was the right thing to do. And I'd like to think that made a big difference in telling the president that most of the country, most of conservatives feel so strongly about this. We don't want war. We certainly don't want an endless war, but we cannot have Iran move towards a nuclear weapon.
It appears that Donald Trump is doing some diplomacy now, and hopefully that will work, and he's given the Iranians a couple of weeks now. And, of course, I'm sure there's all kinds of plans that Donald Trump's not about to tell us or the media about, but right now it seems like a 2-week kind of a standstill for 2 weeks for diplomacy. Would you say that's correct?
Well, it certainly appears that he has given himself time. There are meetings going on in Europe. I think the Europeans want an off-ramp. But name me one other person in the last 50 years that would have been able to get to a point where they were going to denuclearize Iran. I mean, there's no other president that would have that ability to leverage, to negotiate, to deter. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I certainly hope that it turns out diplomatically. But he has given himself maximum leverage, and I'm proud of the position he's in. He's done the right thing, and the Israeli people, quite frankly, all of the people in that region are going to be much safer as a result of it.
All right, Congressman August Pfluger is with us on AM 1070, KWEL, and FM 107.1. And so what's next? I guess we wait. And again, there's so much that we don't know what's going on, so people speculate and come up with all kinds of scenarios. And like I say, we'll leave it to our president. 16 away from the hour, we'll bring in a call. Welcome into the broadcast. You're on the morning show with Congressman August Pfluger. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Good morning, Congressman.
Great. Good morning.
Hey, this is Gabriel Dye here in Midland, and I do care about the war in Israel. In fact, I just left a prayer meeting where we prayed about it. But regardless of what happens over there, that's not going to change too much. Mortgage and rent and taxes and things here. And what about our representation and help against the IRS here in these United States? I'm in a major bind, like lose my house bind against the IRS, and I need help.
Well, Gabriel, thank you for sharing that, and it takes a lot of courage to make that call. We have a great team with representatives inside Midland and Odessa, and we're going to get your information. My office is going to get in touch with you today. We help people all the time, regardless of what the situation is, VA, IRS, Social Security. So let us get involved, if you will, so that we can dive in and understand what's going on and make that help. And this is something that's important for all the listeners out there. Has nothing to do with party affiliation. We literally spend every single day. I have 6 offices, Midland and Odessa, Brownwood and San Angelo, Killeen and Llano, all throughout this district that I represent, where we spend every single day helping. And yes, it's sad that we have to do that, but we love it. That is our job. That is my job. So again, Gabriel, thanks for calling in. Gabriel Dye and my team, they are listening right now. And so if you will, maybe you can call back to our office, in Midland. And we'll make sure that we get that information to you. And for those that are listening, Pfluger.house.gov, and you can go online. It's a very easy click of a button to send us your information if you're out there listening and have a similar issue. But Gabriel, thank you, and we will make sure we get in touch with you.
All right, our number is 620-8700, 620-8700, Congressman August Pfluger. Other things that are going on in the Mideast, obviously, is what it is. The big, beautiful bill, where do we stand with that, and how do you stand?
Well, thank you for asking that. You know, I talked to senior leaders in the White House, as I mentioned, yesterday on Iran, but also on the one big beautiful bill. We've done our part in the House. Very proud of the bill that we sent to the Senate. It saves over $1.6 trillion. It, in many cases, makes permanent tax cuts that President Trump did in 2017. It adds new tax provisions like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. That's a big deal in the Permian Basin, a really big deal for those that are working overtime. It spends $150 billion on the military to help to triage so many provisions. It starts to refill the SPR, which I did. I led on that issue. We need to refill the SPR. We need that to be an emergency use only. So, bottom line, President Trump expects that he will sign this into law on July 4th. That means the Senate has to pass this bill by Wednesday or Thursday, and the House would have to pass it the following day. There are several provisions that I am concerned about in the Senate that have been suggested. They are still working this bill right now, but I don't want to see them go any weaker on some of the green energy provisions. I don't want to see them go any weaker on the reform for Medicaid that we are putting into place. I want to make sure that we are garnering the savings, that we are getting the work requirements for those that are currently receiving Medicaid, able-bodied adults in places like New York. That doesn't happen here in Texas because we didn't expand. But we want to make sure that the bill pretty much looks like what we sent to the Senate. If that is the case, and they can pass it on Wednesday or Thursday, we will pass it on Friday, and President Trump will sign it into law on July 4th. Everybody knows he likes it, and this would be the biggest of all shows to pass this and to give Americans confidence that on their mortgage and on their bills and on everything else, that we're doing the right thing.
I know that the green energy and all that kind of thing has been cut, but only by half. Why not cut the whole thing? I don't quite understand that.
Well, you're right, Craig, and that was a fight that we had in the House, and this is why I say to the Senate, we've had these conversations. We had 217. I think it ended up being 215 yes votes to pass it, but 215 yes votes to get to this point. Many conservatives, including myself, pushed for that, and it involved compromise. It's not perfect, but let me tell you this: this is a first down. It's a massive first down, and it gets us in the right direction. If we do this, I believe we will keep control of the House. I believe we will win in the midterms, and we're going to come back a next bite at the apple for another first down to continue to do things like you're suggesting there. And let me, Craig, if you don't mind, I have the number for the Midland office for Gabriel, if he's still listening, 432-687-2390. That's 432-687-2390 to call the Midland office to get help with IRS. I didn't have that earlier, but I have it now. Thank you to my team for that.
All right, let's bring in a call. You're on the Morning Show next on KWEL with Congressman August Pfluger.
Good morning, Congressman. Good morning, Craig.
Howdy.
I just want to tell you thank you for the great job you're doing up there. It is such a breath of fresh air to see somebody that's representing the people and the opinions of the Permian Basin. Just one quick question. Are we doing anything up there to prevent the census from being tilted because of what the Democrats did by letting the 20 million in?
Yes, and thank you for that. Thank you for the words on that, and I'll speak to some of the oil and gas things that I do. That's what we are. We believe that in the 2020 census that was counted and then was filled out and carried out in 2021 under the Biden administration, so that the counting counts all persons. And I happen to disagree with that. It's a constitutional issue that's been debated many times, but what we know is that there were shenanigans that happened in places like New York, and I firmly believe that those shenanigans led to at least one, maybe two more representatives in New York, the same in California, which those representatives should have been. We firmly believe that Texas needed at least one more, maybe two representatives. So it would have been, that population that they're losing, and it wasn't just, the question of counting citizens versus all persons, the constitutional issue. It was also just a math problem. So, yes, we're on it. The census won't happen until 2030, but I think that, smart people that are working these issues that want to see accountability are moving in that direction. So I appreciate you asking that. It's something that's on our minds. People are fleeing New York City at record numbers because they don't want to be there. They don't want to be governed by Gavin Newsom in California either.
All right. And with that, we got to go. We need to run along. We need to pray for our country. Congressman Pfluger, thank you. Thanks so much.
Craig, thank you. And in 60 seconds to close out, if I can have that, it's a huge honor to represent the Permian Basin. I spend a lot of my time bringing congressmen to the Permian Basin, which we recently did. We had the Energy and Commerce Committee there under Chairman Brett Guthrie, and we talked a lot about what the Permian Basin does. And we're also pushing back on this notion that $40 or $50 oil works. The government doesn't set the prices, but we set the conditions. The conditions that we need to set is exactly what we're doing in this one big, beautiful bill, which is to cut regulations, to start refilling the SPR, to make sure that permitting is easy so that we can drill and that the conditions can be set. And I am educating my colleagues that $65 to $85 oil right there in the middle at 75, that'd be pretty nice. That's long-term success. That is 14 million barrels a day. That is the Permian Basin providing affordable, reliable energy, sub-$3 gasoline, good prices on groceries. So just know that the education that y'all give me has allowed me to educate in turn my colleagues, and we're over 50 or 60 different congressmen since I've been in office who have visited the Permian Basin, been on drilling rigs, seen completions and frac jobs, and understand now what it means to produce oil and gas at an affordable price. God bless everybody for doing such a great job. It's the first day of summer. Stay cool out there, and thank you for the opportunity to represent you.
All right, Congressman Pfluger, thank you much. Have a good day. God bless.